Welcome to the show. Shout out Shiva, JC, Stuart Wild, Wakey Wakey, my dad, Beja Floors, Wolves, Friends, Love, Adventure, and Joy. This is episode one of the I Kid You Not radio show, hosted on the Rebel Radio Network with your host, yours truly, me, Trevor Ahola. Today we are joined from the Costa Rican highlands, where the hummingbirds frolic in the waterfalls, by the man the hummingbirds migrate to, Mr. David West. And I have a special passage I would like to read because it's both of our birthdays today. And it's a song, but it's got beautiful lyrics. And so it goes like this. The sun is risen, the day is born. All nature awakes at dawn. Love arrived, hey, joy arrived. So did the healing of the hummingbird. The sun is shining, the darkness gone. All has its place in total perfection. I am here working to know the way of the heart I do follow. I am here working to know, shining with the heart's glow. I keep feeling, I keep singing, praying with this song. I keep smiling, I keep dancing. Life is a great celebration. With no further ado, my guest, David West. So David is a ex-U.S. resident, a heart warrior, a truth teller, a trailblazer, a musician, a poet, an artist, a stud, and a father. He is someone I admire and receive a kick from. I get a kick out of him. He has a unique perspective on this earth and is someone who walks his own path, looks after his family, and answers to very few men. With no further ado, how are you doing today, David? Happy birthday.
Thank you, buddy. Happy birthday to you as well, man. Thanks for the honor to be on this show today. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. You know, I'm out here in Costa Rica, as you mentioned. The internet is very interesting in these third world, so there might be glitches here and there, but no worries. It's just all a part of the flow. And yeah, I'll do my best. And if the volume is good, let me know if that works for you. And if you need me to repeat anything, just be like, hey, what?
No, everything's looking great.
you know.
It's flowing. Okay, so you mentioned you had to take your son out of school due to the COVID protocols. Can you fill us in a little bit on the general feel of Costa Rica these days and your experience so far with having a son and the school system and all the COVID protocols and your feelings about that and the stresses of being a father and trying to do the right thing?
Yeah, man, jumping right into it. So the thing about the pulling out of the school is it's so brand new. Like it literally happened yesterday. Yesterday was the first day that we didn't go. So, I still am supportive of some of the people that are in that school right now, and because it's so new and raw, I'm going to choose to not, kind of go into details of where it is and what's involved, but I can look at it more from an umbrella point of view and where I stand with this whole idea of sovereignty and mandated impositions on another, right? So those are two ends of the spectrum. Um, I would say, to summarize my path with this is has been a very interesting test. And I'm pretty black and white with it because it's crystal clear for me. I'm not confused in any way. So it's pretty easy to understand. It's like when you understand what's going on, you understand sort of maybe the opponent. We can call this whole thing an opponent. It's kind of like chess. When you're able to see what's happening, it's pretty easy to navigate through, right? And so to me, that's kind of what this is it's an interesting multi-dimensional, multi-layered chess game, and I can see the path that the invisible opponent, is playing. So, it's not like a very difficult game, especially anymore. It's just pretty crystal clear, and I look at it like we're in the end game.
Well,
Game is pretty much over. We're at the end of this very long, sort of drawn out, chess game on some level, and we're at the end. So I'm not really concerned too much because the biggest parts of the battle are over, and we're just in the checkmate phase, you know? So, you know, to kind of summarize what that means is the last year and a half, it was a difficult game for all of us. A lot of us were faced with this idea of imposition on one's sovereignty, and many have chosen the path of fear and submission. And so, which is absolutely okay, right? And so even grandmasters in chess, I'm gonna use chess because it's a great analogy. Even grandmasters play games and they forfeit, right? They put their king down and they say, you know, I'm done playing the game. And so you win. And so that's kind of what has happened with a lot of people, right? They're just seeing for themselves the game being over. See, literally and metaphorically when I play chess on and off the board in life, I don't quit. I like to see it all the way until I can't get anything else out of it, meaning learning, experience, you know, better understanding. So I just keep on playing, keep on playing. And so the idea of imposition on another's sovereignty, it's basically in a nutshell, what that is it's saying, um, person A has jurisdiction over person B, and so that's an imposition on one's sovereignty. And the original code of this matrix was living in free will. Like free will is definitely one of the main programs within this place that we're in. And when one forces something on another, that's breaking the law of free will. I don't know how other simple way to put it, but I'm sure many of you have heard this before. It's nothing new. The point is that you can take that and look at any narrative and ask yourself, what is the subtext in this narrative, right? Is the subtext imposing on another's free will, or is the subtext choice, right? And what I mean by subtext in theater script analysis, you can look at the face value words, right? Like the words that are on the script or the page, but what are the characters really saying, right? That's subtext. What's going on between the lines, sort of thing. And so the subtext, like I mentioned, asking yourself, is the subtext imposition on another's sovereignty, or is the subtext free will? And so when you take a look at, I'll give you just an example. Person B walks into a facility, whatever that facility is, establishment, organization, group of people, some kind of thing, right? It doesn't matter what it is. And one can argue, oh, well, if it's a business, it means something different, whatever. That's another path we can talk about. But person B walks into person A's, whatever it is. And person A is like, well, you cannot come in unless you do this. You can only come in if you do this thing, right? And listen, we've had plenty of agreements in our society where someone walks into establishment like without a shirt, for example, or they walk into establishment behaving belligerently, or something that we can agree upon is not really kind of proper behavior for this venue. But when one starts creating brand new requests and quote unquote mandates to be somewhere, and if you don't do this you can't come in, it really is kind of a tricky thing. And so for me to kind of summarize your question, for me the idea of saying to myself, well, what is the subtext here that I'm reading? Are you imposing yourself upon my sovereignty, right? Or do I have free will, and do I have choice, right? And so when I say to myself, the answer is you're imposing your will upon me. You are taking away my free will, and I am not given a choice. Then that's the problem. So yeah, so that's kind of where that is. Maybe in another interview we could talk more about specifics, but I think for now it's just good to say, for me, I choose to raise my child in this way where free will trumps, right? Free will is the leader because we are sovereign human beings. And so I don't submit, and nor am I teaching my child or children to submit, right? To submit to some sort of authority unwillingly. I mean, if something makes sense, right? that's one thing. Hey, buddy, you can't come in here and like throw knives at random places. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Or, you can't come in here and like throw stink bombs, those stink bombs you could buy up. I used to love prank stuff when I was a kid. So anyways, I get it. If it's an agreement, right? If it's an agreement, that makes sense. Okay, cool. But if someone comes to me with some narrative that makes absolutely no sense, I'm sorry, I don't jump through hoops for no reason. And so, yeah. And so later, maybe we can have you ask another question or what you would like, but I think it's important to talk about this idea of the code that is within this narrative, on one side free will, on the other side non-free will, right? And so like, I'll just summarize what that means. When you say, for example, in the extreme example, if you don't get vaccinated, my vaccine will not work, right? So that is crystal clear, right? But you can impose that subtext upon all these other interesting narratives. You can't come in unless you wash your hands, right? Because you're going to kill me. And so, it's totally ludicrous, because then one has to ask themselves, okay, well, if I can't come into your establishment without washing my hands, does that mean that you have calculated the lifespan of these bacteria? Because viruses and bacteria are different. If people haven't researched that, please feel free. Calculated the lifespan of these bacteria, and have you and your staff and every single person that's in the establishment already have abided by those rules, including yourself? Like, have you washed your own hands? Have you checked your own temperature, right? These sorts of questions. So there's holes in the story, and holes in their requests and holes in the narrative. The list goes on and on. But to summarize your question, that's where I'm coming from.
Beautiful. I think that a line in the sand has to be drawn somewhere, and people need to do what they believe in, in the name of freedom, and that's what you're doing. I just have this follow-up question: is would you homeschool your son? And just a secondary question to that is, how is he feeling with it? Is he missing his friends, or what's his perspective on the whole situation? I know it's only been a day, but
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tricky point of view, because the way that I see it, and I'll summarize this the best that I can, and I think moving into general like umbrella perspectives about what's happening might be better than having else. To all parents that are out there, any parent that is going through some sort of feeling that isn't a good feeling about what their children are going through. I mean, because there are extreme situations where children are coming into these schools that have been in front of a computer for months and months and months, and now they have these like glass or plexiglass partitions, and the teachers are trying to communicate through these partitions, and all the kids are wearing masks, and like they have to line up in this. It's like next level, right? So like one argument that I've heard is, oh, well, your situation is not nearly as bad as some other situations. And so, I don't mean to mock that point of view, because everyone has their validity and truth from where they're coming from. But to me, it's crystal clear. If you abide by or accept a belief as truth in any level, you are submitting to that belief system. And I can go as far as saying like it's spell casting. When one spell casts, right? Because spell casting to me is like using the word written or spoken to create elaborate stories that that people over a period of time end up believing, right? And so this like repetitive propaganda, people are like, okay, well, I guess I've heard it enough times. Their subconscious just says, they accept it, right? It's bypassed the conscious part of the mind, and they accept it. So I guess for me, the big thing is that I would say to parents and anyone that is faced with this feeling of like, what do I do? Well, we as a human race have forgotten our power and what we have the ability to create, like our ability of creation. And so creation comes from, it comes from within. And there's a whole lot of, amazing things that fuel that creation. So what I'm trying to say in my specific example, I can say to myself, oh, well, that grocery store, and I'm going to use another example and not the school thing, but that grocery store sells me this and that kind of food. That grocery store has this and that kind of drink that I need, or that grocery store has these packaged chips or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. And they're saying to me, I can't come in. I can't come in there unless I do this, 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 and this. So me, I can say to myself, okay, well, I have no belief or power, quote unquote, which isn't true. So I'm going to submit. I'm going to do all these things you want me to do so I can go in and get those things that I want. Or one can stand up and say, I am a powerful creator, right? I'm a powerful creator. I can do anything. I do not need you. And one can turn around and go home and create, right? Go and create those things for themselves. Create the drinks you like, create the food, right? Grow that food. Just anything's learnable. It's like we live in a world where literally like you could do anything you want here. Not anything, but a lot of things. So just go ahead and transpose that sort of approach to any facet, right? And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's some sort of external like entertainment, some external like food source, some external education. Like we literally have the power to create exactly what we want, customize our experience. So that's sort of my approach to that. The last thing that I'll say, and this is important because I've been speaking with people about this, and that is that the idea of let's see, how do I phrase this? Why don't we break on that for now? Why don't we go to that? We as a community, sort of how things are naturally sort of coming together and unraveling themselves in a natural way. But I want to kind of come back to that because I kind of want to see what other questions you have and kind of where you would like to go in this interview
Cool.
first.
Okay, well, I just wanted to comment on just the kids growing up these days and the environment that they're going to be in. You know, like I got in a nice upbringing where the world wasn't quite turning. It was still kind of, or it wasn't quite changing this way. Definitely not turning. But I had freedom, and I got to grow up with people a little older than me that lived this kind of free life before 9/11 and stuff. And it's just different now for the kids.
Can you hear me? Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
There, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Check 1 2.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, cool. So the
Okay.
last thing that I heard, yeah, I could hear you. I could hear you. The last thing I heard you say was growing up and things were just a little different, and then you
Yes.
started cutting out.
Yeah, okay. So like I feel like I got the tail end of the good generations, you know, where people could ride around in the backs of trucks, and then life was fun, and you had adventure in your day, and you played in the forest, and there wasn't so much these scary viruses going around, and it was fun. And I feel bad for the kids growing up these days because even some of my cousins that have trained their whole life, you know, for sports and stuff, they're in the time where they need to go to college for their scholarships, and it's all on hold because of this virus. And that's not the worst part. The worst part is the youngest kids, the kids that are 8 years old to 10 years old that are going to be scared of their classmates potentially, that are going to have social um, uh, problems because of the masks, and they're just not going to develop potentially uh, the same way because of the, you know, what we said with the plexiglasses, and and just the amount of fear that's around there. It's just not good for a kid growing up. So I just wanted to comment on that, and hopefully you being in Costa Rica and raising your son, you're going to be able to sidestep some of that, because I just don't see a good outcome with any of that. But okay, so moving to my next question, and if you have any commentary on that, feel free.
Yeah, I'll just mention something. It's really important. So if one is a parent and they're awake, right, and they've figured it out, right, and I'm not trying to go into splitting up perspectives of being good or bad, meaning that there's not a good or bad perspective. Like there's not even saying awake and asleep. It's kind of difficult to use those terms because everybody is on their path of experience, right? And so the experiences, the collective experiences are one grand experience, right? Individualized into all of these different perspectives. So with that being said, for me, um, the way that I see it is that it's brainwashing, right? It's brainwashing. And so I knew our system when we were children was brainwashing as well, but this is a totally different kind of brainwashing.
New gear.
Um, what's that?
It's a new gear. They just shifted gears on us.
For sure. Yeah, it's a totally different flavor. And so children don't understand. They don't have the capability of comprehending and understanding the brainwashing that is happening. So like I remember when I was 5, 6, 7, I mean kindergarten for a second or whatever. And if I look back at that time from my perspective now, it's like, you know, giving information, teachers up there giving information, their authority, their taller, giving information. You got to sit here. You can't go to the bathroom without having a bathroom pass. You have to do this. This is history. This is history. It's like program. And so if I say to myself now, if I jumped into that reality, if I was me and I jumped into the reality where I was a 5, 6-year-old, I would be like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like,
but
let's simmer down here, people. But our children, right? And so you have brought up a question where it's like, oh, well, do kids miss their friends and stuff like that? And if you gave the child the choice of, for example, like you need to have your temperature taken every single day before you go into school, right? A child's going to probably say, yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. All I have to do is have this little thing on my arm and I get to see my friends, right? They're looking at it from, it's a really basic, not basic, but more wholesome approach to reality in life. But the real virus is fear within this matrix. And that virus that is being implemented across the world, it's very, it's beyond the comprehension of children. And so if you take a look at like subtle brainwash, subtle programming, like a child can go in and get their temperature taken for, I don't know, like let's pretend a year. I'm just throwing a number out. And somewhere in between the first day and that year, and I'm just guessing, I'm not a professional or anything, that child's just going to normalize it. They're going to say, yeah, that's nothing, right? At first it's awkward and weird because now you're invasively like you're taking my private property, which is my temperature. This is my private property. Hey, it's not yours. It's only between me and my primary care physician. And then you have these like teachers or kids or students or whatever trying to like, hey, everyone, this kid over here is like 99 degrees,
Yeah, look out for him.
Crazy, yeah. Right? And that's the extreme scenario. So the point I'm trying to make, to summarize, if a child is given that choice to take that temperature to see their friends, they're going to say yes. But a parent who's awake has to see like where that path leads. Temperature for 365 days, and then one day there's some sort of like, I don't know, like a variation of the vaccine, and you come in and there's doctors with briefcases standing there with these little things that they just prick you on your arm real quick, and it's like, oh, that's pretty much the same thing I've been doing for a year, except it hurts a little bit more, but that's weird. Right? But it's like, that's how you program to get to the next level. And then there's a next level and there's a next level. And from my point of view, that path only leads to death, straight up. And we can argue all day long. It's just the temperature.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little more like understanding of what's going on. So that's my point.
It's like the frog in the boiling water, and it's also the carrot in front of the donkey. You know, yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
sums it up. It's you got to draw the line in the sand somewhere, like we've kind of mentioned, and it's beautiful that. And it's like chess too. You look ahead of your opponent's tactics, and you make the adjustments that you need to make.
Well,
Right.
I played a very difficult mid game. In some level, I thought I died, lost, whatever we want to call it. It was very difficult. The last year and a half, my game was very difficult. I went up against LAX. I went up against the Ministry de Salute. I went up against Vice President of Delta, and said no, no, no. I'm not doing this. And I won pretty much every time. That story is probably for another interview. But like I've gone up against really big heavy hitters when it comes to this. It started off with like Target and different stores, grocery stores, and restaurants and stuff like that. And it's gotten to a point where I don't even really care to educate on a day-to-day basis. If someone is, there and they've made that choice where that's their normal, cool. That's your path,
Fill your boots, yeah.
exactly.
Okay, so this kind of works into my next question, which I'll just ask now is, I just would like you to know a little bit more about your childhood personally, what type of child you were, what your dreams were, and then if you could go into when I would call you awakened in some ways. So at what point in time did you start to maybe think the world wasn't the way it was told to us, and talk about that process a little bit as well.
Yeah, so start off with the first one. What kind of child was I? I was very quiet. So quiet on some level because I was gathering information. And so, I'm a teacher as well. I teach kids. I say, hey, like I ask them, what is the best skill you can obtain or have, or what is one of the best skills that you could have living in this world? And it turns into a conversation. And my opinion is listening is huge. If you could listen, gather information, a lot of people want to talk, but there's a whole lot of information that can be gathered. And so when I was younger, I was very quiet, didn't really talk a lot. And so listened a lot. I was just hearing, experiencing, but I gathered so much information. I didn't even really know what to say at the time because I felt like this was after this whole experience of being in this time and space and place, was new for me, other lifetimes held their own learning. But growing up, I ended up finding solitude in music, and solace, or whatever word's supposed to be there. Definitely a bond with sound and music. And then I ended up getting into performance, stage performance, live performance. And it's kind of been my safe place, magical, creative space that I still play in to this day. To this day, I feel like I'm still brand new on that path. As far as the awakened, um, I don't think that there is necessarily a breaking point. I think waking up from a dream is a process. I've had quite quite a number of interesting experiences with medicines, without medicines, and medicines is a whole world topic. It can go from plants to sound. There's tons of medicines. But the idea of waking up, right? I mean, I guess it depends on like what the subject is. When 9/11 hit, I was living in New York for a couple years and just got back to California for like a few weeks. I was back, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 all this stuff is on the news. And I remember like where I was working, they were just playing it, and I was watching people's reaction to that. It was interesting watching people react so emotionally in a traumatic way. And so I've always, since I was a child, always looked at television as being scripted, always. And my parents knew this. My parents knew that I knew that television was scripted. So like I remember watching Michael Jackson's Thriller, and watching it, I don't remember how old, young, and my mom just like let me because she knew I didn't believe it. I told her, I said, yeah, these are just, actors wearing costumes, pretty interesting. And so I wasn't emotionally involved, right? And so growing up, and I see things on the television or whatever. I mean, I don't own a television, but at the time of 9/11, I'm watching people react in such a way that it was so interesting because it was their like um their emotional like experience. It was a trauma for them. And so it didn't take very long to kind of like just look into it briefly to see that the whole thing was scripted. It was like a theatrical presentation of something to the world, right? And it was pretty obvious to me very early. I mean, within a few weeks, it was easily figured out at that point. And a lot of people did figure it out as well. And it's nothing new at this point, but everybody is wanting a story to be true more or less to some degree. And shifting really quick into the outer space, like light speed Star Wars universe that has been presented to people. When I was in that, because I believed that, because I wanted to believe that, I believed it because I wanted to at some point, but with just a little investigation. And then, just really quick, a shout out to Mark Knight, Wakey Wakey. I mean, that dude is straight up like on point. And so it was really amazing. I would never forget when I connected with Mark. I was in the middle of the Silicon Valley, like straight up mentally, spiritually, like alone. Like I'm looking around at this deep matrix, like awake, and everyone is quote unquote sleeping. And just by chance, I got to find his Luminaries Mysterium documentary, which is a great documentary. If anyone hasn't seen it, please check that out. And so I was like, the hairs are standing up on the back of my neck right now because I'm going back into that time. And I was like, whoa, this is it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not by myself. Like, this is straight up like truth right here. And so I remember reaching out to him. We had great conversations over the phone. We were just connecting. I was just like so grateful that there was another person on that level. And we ended up doing a great podcast, and we're friends to this day. He's an awesome person. And so, yeah, if anyone hasn't seen any of his stuff, please, find him. Wakey Wakey. I believe it's wakeywakey.com. We can just kind of put that in the description. But
I'll
just
put
shout
I'll
out to
put
Mark there.
I'll put the link in the underneath this video when I set it up, and I'll put also the link to your guys' conversation, which was I really enjoyed as well, and that was the first time I got to hear you speak, and I thought that was one of Mark's better things he put out. You guys really had some nice chemistry, and I would just like to ask you if you have maybe an answer to this question, which is how come the spell doesn't work on some people? Do you think it could be a past life thing? Do you think it's part of the code that there has to be a certain like 5% people that the spell doesn't work on to the 95 where it does work on, just because that's the code of the universe? Do you have any answer to that question?
Well, it really depends on what school of thought one wants to approach this from. And so why doesn't it work on some people? So like let's look at the school of thought from the perspective of we are in a simulation. Like the simulation, maybe it's within a simulation, maybe it's just one simulation, maybe it's simulation within simulation, yada yada. But within any kind of organized simulated game, within the code, within the program, within the structure of that, there is the laws and the rules for the universe that you're in, right? And so into the game, there are people written into the game, right? And so like literally, like not only could the plants and animals be a part of the simulation written in code, but as well as people. And so one can say, well, how many people are codes and
Mm.
how many people are living within a coded avatar, but they're actually living souls, right? And
Hmm.
so, that, I don't know if you want to go down that path, but for this interview, but I think the idea of people are still waking up. I question myself, can Sims or non NPCs, non-player characters, can they shift and change? I mean, this is kind of a rabbit hole, and I don't know how far this audience wants to kind of go down that rabbit hole and understanding, but the idea that we're inside of a Sophia simulation, right? This Gaia, Sophia, whatever words we want to put there, the virus you could see and feel moves around. And so, um, I think I don't want to go too far away from your question, but one interesting thing that I ask myself is when I am witnessing my external reality um, in disharmony, something that is disharmonic, right? And I ask myself also, like, who am I in relation to this disharmony that I'm witnessing? I can't help but think about like what happens within my own self when I am quote unquote sick, right? And so in us, there's an entire world of things that are happening, and who's to say that it's not linked and connected, our internal world and our external world? So the idea of being awake or awakening, I mean, if you know anything about biology, or I didn't study it too much, but basically in a nutshell, there are, and I'll summarize it not using scientific terms, but there are things within us that sometimes become compromised in the most extreme scenario, cancer that ends up killing the organism. But there is a dance happening within that body. And so the dance is between these two polar opposites. And so how much of this system that we're in are the beneficial, or are the um, benevolent, or the awakened? And why doesn't the illusion of fear, or whatever it is that's happening within this virus code, why doesn't it work on them? Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think all systems need that dance. You can dance by yourself, but this is a whole, like, this is a play happening, and there's characters, and within scripts there's the protagonist, antagonist, right? Good guy, bad guy, whatever we want to call it. Otherwise it would be just kind of boring. Imagine if you were in the sim by yourself and you're just there and there's like 5 people in the whole world. This is part of the great awakening, for us to really realize ourselves and who we are in this simulation. I fully believe that this place is for us. I fully believe that it's not here to deteriorate. It's here to bring the awareness and the awakening of who we are, of who we actually are. Now it seems cliche, but we are living it right now. Like, we're watching this unravel in our own realities.
That's beautiful. And I've actually quoted you a couple of times here, and I think some of these quotes work in right now. Uh, and it's all, one of them is, it's all orchestrated by the most amazing architect you could ever imagine, the most amazing architect of all time. And then just to go into the harmony in your environment, I got this quote from you, which is, fear can spread and love can spread. It's that simple. The news is spitting out fear. The news is spitting out chaos. Listen to the subtext. There's all these words they're saying, sentences, but there's subtext, which is what they're saying is behind what they're saying. Be afraid. The future is scary. We're all going to die. Turn off the news. Just straight up turn it off. And then to go further, it's create the environment to be harmonic, melodic, and vibrate harmony. Cut out those subtexts of fear. You can do it. You can do it. Actually, that's the way you said it.
Do it.
So
Nice. Where
yeah,
was that? Can you remind me where that was?
that was from your video series when you were going up against all these who you were listing before, like the airline boss and the Target people. So I just went through your videos and I took some of the quotes that kind of jumped out to me.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, if anyone hasn't seen that, it's an interesting story, right? The idea of coming up, it was really the hero's journey on some level. If I look at like what that was, I just look at
Exactly
it
what it
from
was.
like a third point, and that's, I think that, that channel, it's not super easily found, but we could put the link in there if anyone hasn't seen that. The Journey to the Sun was, yeah, it had a good ending, man. It was good. And I look at it like,
Beautiful.
I remember when I was editing that, I was crying for the character in the documentary that I made, which was me. I mean, it looked like me, it was me, but I was looking at it as if it wasn't me, and I was there feeling empathy for that character or person. Um, but yeah, I mean,
You really leaned on your courage and your bravery and your, you put it on the line, right? So that's beautiful. Um,
yeah, thank you.
um, so I guess we'll just there's another subject that's interesting to me, and I'd like to know when you first heard about the reptilians, because I remember when I first heard about that, that blew my mind. I was like,
Can
"There's
you say
what?
it again? I didn't quite hear it. It glitched out. You
the
asked what I
the the
heard about
lizards, the reptilians." Maybe they didn't want to have that part in there, but you know what? I'll say it again. Um, I just would like to know where you were in life and how you first heard about that and what your initial thoughts were, because that just threw me for a loop the first time I heard it. I was like, "There's what on this planet?" Okay, so
Yeah. So I'm trying to think about like when I first heard about that, because it's all memory and I've been here before, played the game before. And so the way that I summarize like how reptilians are involved, I'm gonna try. I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes because I'm not exactly sure like where the audience is or where the people are in understanding. But when you look at the original creation of this realm, or it probably no, in fact, it was. It was. This is a copy of um, another realm that we are in. I don't know how to explain that, but in that other realm, right? It's not this realm. In that other realm, there was uh, the source of creation manifest into physical. And so I don't know exactly how many simulations back or unsimulations back. I don't know how to say that. I don't know what words there are, but creation manifested it into physical, prime source into physical, and there was sort of a hiccup happening. I don't want to go too far into it, but with all the details, but if you look at it, though, the offspring was able, and so there was a distortion within. Again, I'm not trying to like really go down this rabbit hole with how and what, but just look at the bloodlines of Cain and Abel, right? And so the bloodlines of Cain were basically reptilian. The bloodlines of Abel were the pure source manifest. And so there have been battles throughout history and time, not necessarily within this simulation that we're in, but definitely in a place and space that we are. We're not here actually, and this is where I'm at right now. And my understanding is we're not actually in this place; we're just in the sim. And so, the physical attributes of the bloodlines of Cain are reptilian. They're very different, but still hold the similarity through that Eve physical incarnation. And so there is a link between the Cain and the Abel, right? There's a link between those two bloodlines. And so when we're inside of the simulation here, or one of the simulations that we're in, everybody looks the same, right? Everybody looks the same. Now, granted, we do have extreme powers within the simulation that the simulation kind of holds at bay. Like the simulation won't allow us to actually see through the veil because it's written in the code of the avatars in the system that we're in. So when you're experiencing something that one might seem reptilian, well, it's because that the reptilians are in the simulation. And this is where that overlay comes from, where it's like you see the glitches of the newscasters or the glitches of the, you can see, I mean, I've seen reptilians, but you don't get to see them with your eye. You have to use a different way of seeing them. And so, like, for example, all those like Black Lives Matter protests that were being bussed in from city to city, those were huge buses, like huge blacked out windows. And not only were the protesters on there, but the police, right? It was all a show, it was all disguised, but that was all like orchestrated and created by the bloodlines of Cain, and so, or reptilians. And you could feel like what it is they were doing, and they live in that world of chaos and fear and anger and hate and violence. Like that's what they're creating. It's like Tasmanian devil going from city to city to create this vibration that is not in resonate, which doesn't naturally resonate in these places. So to summarize that, like that's kind of where we are with reptilians, and so why we can't see them, and are they here, and yada yada. So again, everyone who is playing this game has either been directly put in or hijacked in, or some sort of way that they figured out how to code themselves into the simulation, whether they're allowed to play or not. And so there is a whole other set of rules and that's happening where we actually are, right? And so that's another story. And I'm pretty convinced and sure that this is like the sunken Atlantis, right? We're in the sunken Atlantis. And so Atlantis is actually where we were before we came into the sim. And so before that was Lemuria and Mu. And so all of these realms exist outside of the sim. It's funny when you hear people talk about, oh yeah, like the Lemurians are at Mount Shasta. This whole place is a simulation. Like the world of Atlantis was very expansive and huge, and it was a greater world, and it had much bigger and more advanced regulations and rules, less rules for how their civilization worked and was created. And it still exists. It's still existing. It's just not in this simulation. I don't know how else to explain that. So I don't know if that answers.
That's beautiful. And you actually sensed my next question, which was going to be about Atlantis. But just to finish off what we were just talking about with the reptilians, I would consider them the ultimate protagonist, and every good story needs a protagonist, and they really fill that role beautifully. As creepy and cold as they tend to, manifest to us warm beings. And you sensed the Atlantis question. I was going to ask you about that, and if you've ever come across any Tartaria information. I'm not sure how much you spend time researching at this point. Now that you're in Costa Rica, you kind of you might just be living the unplugged life and not spending as much time on the internet. But have you come across so much Tartaria content, or do you find that interesting? Because I feel like they're the descendants of Atlantis as well.
Tartaria, I haven't heard that word before.
Okay.
Am I saying that right? Tartaria?
Yeah. I guess it was a country on some old maps where Russia is today, and it's been erased from our maps. At some point in time, potentially in the 1800s, there was an event and also wars, and some people think that some of the wars were actually just to erase the history of Tartaria from our history books, right? So anyways, so I just was checking in on that. Yeah, it's a beautiful subject that I'm not sure how much time you have left and how much, and I know you got to take your son to school, so can you give an update on how much time you think you have left so I know how to approach?
I took him out of school.
Oh.
Today's my birthday, so we're gonna go ATV riding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can wrap up in 5 to 10.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I got one more question for you then, and that's can you give us a David West assessment of where we are today? It's been 1 year since the lockdowns. Are people waking up? Is there going to be this split? What is your levels of optimism for the future?
Yeah, great question. So I have zero fear because it's crystal clear.
Boom.
And I didn't mean for that to rhyme. It just came out that way. So yeah, I mean, I think that in the beginning of this, in the middle, and it was really like surprising. I knew it was going to go down, but not exactly in the way that it did. Where are we now? So this is the splitting of worlds, right? Basically, the NPCs and any living soul that is being unplugged from this sim is choosing that path, right? And so going down that path of death, which is really, I mean, death, life, are those real like words that are opposite? I mean, this is, I always say like all paths lead to the same place. And so there's no fear involved. And if someone chooses to go down that path, that's their choice. So we're watching the splitting of worlds, and in our own personal lives, and in the greater sort of narratives of what's happening. One can look at it like the simulation is being reset. And so, in the narrative of depopulation, people are still, there's a lot of awakened people that are still like talking about, oh, they're depopulating us. And like, it's like a scary thing on some level. But when you kind of take a step back and just say, yeah, death is nothing. Like, really, it's nothing. Death is nothing. It's just an interesting, like, whoa, I'm waking up. It's like when you wake up from your dream. I mean, how many dreams have you had where it's like maybe you die in the dream and it's like, whoosh, and then you're there? Yeah, it's kind of a rush, kind of an adrenaline rush. But that's basically in a nutshell what's happening. Like, the living souls that are choosing to kind of unplug and go back into the realm that we're plugged into, or doing that. NPCs are sort of being shut down, and so it's just kind of the end, like the cleanup. And so I'm just interested to like be here and kind of watching it and watching myself and how, like, I don't know how I am in this scenario. And it doesn't, nothing affects me anymore. Like, literally, I go everywhere without a mask, and it doesn't really bother me when people are afraid. I just like to say that that's what's happening. And again, there's no right or wrong path, and that's one of the things that I think people need to really kind of understand, especially those that are calling themselves awake. It's that, like, fully accept and be okay with and send love and kindness to those that are choosing whatever path they're choosing. And so, whether it's the path of I need to get vaccinated, I need to build spaceships, I need to colonize Mars, and all this, like, hey, go for it. Like, that's your path. Like,
Take
do
your
it.
friends.
Yeah, exactly. So I am, one can easily say, oh, well, those people are so dumb. Like, it's not about putting oneself in some sort of hierarchy to another. It's not like those people are ignorant and I'm intelligent. It's just being the observer, like literally just being there, witnessing, and tuning in to oneself. Do I have peace inside? Right? Because my birth is peace. So that's, to me, more important. How am I? The great thing about the simulation that was created for us is it is a mirror for us to see ourselves whenever we are in situations where we look outside of ourselves and we see something in disharmony. Immediately ask ourselves, is that within me? Is there something within me that I'm seeing? And as soon as disharmony is seen, that's the thing that, like, this is the reason why we're here witnessing, because as soon as that has been forgotten is seen again, it transforms and transmutes, right? We have a word called empathy. It's like, I hear what you're saying. As soon as that empathy happens, then that's the beginning of the transformation. So witnessing is absolutely key here.
Beautiful. And I'd like to quote you one more time, because we talked about the all paths, lead back to the self, or however you want to say it. And your quote was, "You've got your meat body whacking walls, internal and external, and it's all created for you to get through this experience of separation. And then I added my own interpretation, and it says, to me, this means that all roads lead back home. Our external experience is guided by the code, which like a compass, is magnetized due north. The code funnels us into the experiences which grow our soul and ultimately lead us back to oneness. And that's kind of what you were just saying with seeing disharmony outside of yourself, and I don't know how you say it, but just making the connection that that's us creating our reality in some ways, shapes, or forms. So to see that connection, that's how you heal it, and that's how you develop more empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a school of thought that I hear. We have no choice. All is one. We're just here watching this show unravel itself. And there's another school of thought that we are individualized experiences of the source of creation that are creating our reality every single moment. And my response to those two quote unquote opposing schools of thought is that it is both. And this is where people a lot of times get into these debates where they're like, it's this, no, it's not this, it's this, no, it's not that, it's that, and our we're not used to accepting both as being true. It's like if I have this bottle of water here, and you're looking at the front of it, the logo, and I'm looking at the ingredients or whatever, like the calories, everything is zero calories, zero sodium, it's water. The point is that we have different points of view, and so both are true. And I could even turn this and be like, yo, check out what's in the back while I'm looking at the front, and then inevitably I can even drink the water, and so and I could share the water, and so we're experiencing the totality of what it is. It's not your perspective or mine, it's both of them and all of it. And so this idea that we have no free will, it's just ridiculous, because it's on some level it's true, but it is that it's scripted and we have choice. Both are happening simultaneously. It's a dichotomy. So
You're kind of a choice of how you feel about it, how you react, in a way. And
oh yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
I'll just quote you one last time and let you go. And this is a quick one, and it just says, "Your perception is the world you experience. Your perception is the world you experience." Fucking period. That's a David West quote. So
yeah. I mean, I've woken up in base reality, and it was mind-blowing to me, because what I learned in that experience was that I am actually asleep. The base version of myself is the prime source of all creation, and I'm sleeping right now. And I remember, I'll never forget it. It was as the sun was coming up, the birds were creating this bridge around me. I can't explain it. The chirps were coming from outside of my house to in the middle of my being, and then I started becoming awake in the place and space that I actually am. And size is not even a thing. It was just the most enormous everything that one can comprehend or even think about. Now, did my eyes open? No, but I was fully aware of where I was. It was almost as if I was in a bed sleeping. There was a female there helping me in my sleeping in this world. Like, I am asleep right now, witnessing all of the parts of me that have become ill, and I'm bringing to them my medicine. I'm bringing to them my medicine. So every single time I witness something that is in disharmony, I am witnessing it, and that's my medicine to myself. Mind blowing. Yeah. And
yeah,
so,
that's about if someone asks you what's the meaning of life, I think you very poetically put that beautifully right there. And I read this book called The Return of the Bird Tribes, and it kind of, because you had the birds helping you through that experience. So shout out to the birds, thank you for helping.
for
And
sure.
yeah, and that's beautiful.
Thank you, bud. Yeah. I mean, listen, man, I mean, the path that we're on is a fun path. And I think having no fear, learning how to dispel fear. These are all fun things we get to do here, you know,
Mhm.
and if my words help one person, inspire one person, cool. You know, I mean, you know, I think there's plenty of people that inspire me in this world. You know, this is a good number of amazing people out here in Costa Rica. Shout out to all of them, and they know exactly who they are. And so, yeah, I mean, even the United States. I mean, I have friends all over, but I think the point is that you know, we all are connected in this, and having fun, man, having joy, bringing back laughter. These things are that's medicine, man. Like laughter, is straight up medicine. You know what I mean? There's plenty of them, so you know, have fun with it. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show, and I'm
No,
glad I
thank
could
you very much.
had a
If you're not
chat with
having
you.
fun, what are you really doing? You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, have a great day, David. Enjoy
Thanks,
the
buddy.
sun, and uh, and I hope your day is as blessed as it can be. And yeah, the world
Uh,
got 2 times cooler on this day a few times. So
Absolutely. Thanks, brother. Happy birthday to you as well. Happy Earth Day to everybody. Today's Earth Day. You know, let's have fun being in this experience right now. April 22nd. Whoop
whoop
whoop.
whoop whoop whoop. And we can, yeah, I think we got some ideas for the next one, and you mentioned that as well, and I would love to do it again. So we'll be in
Nice.
contact.
Cool, brother. All right, buddy. Have a great birthday. Have a great day. Until next time.
Rebel
Over and
Radio
out.
out. Peace.
Yeah. Peace out.